Howdy mates, good afternoon. How are we doing? Here's a part 3 video. We're right now on the Longleaf Lane, which is another portion of the preserve that this is actually my first time going to this part. So Longleaf Lane is of course referring to the Longleaf Pine that you can see ahead of us. Now, the thing is, slash pine is easily confused with longleaf pine. But the thing is, they are not the same type of conifer, even though they do have some of their similarities. But I will, of course, help with telling some differences. So fortunately, right now, we're actually at a point in time where a lot of the cones have now fallen over. Now these cones that you're seeing on the ground, they take a couple of years for them to fully mature before they release their pollen onto the female cones. Usually it's a trickling down effect, so like the male cones are usually a bit higher, whereas the females are a bit lower on the tree, from what I've understood before. So, point in fact, one key difference, let's see if I can find an example. Let's see. Okay, hold on just a second. Alright, here we go. We actually have a better example now. So, when you look at a branch of a longleaf pine, the thing that all of you should notice is when you look towards the tip of your branch or your twig, notice how the twig does not seem to taper. The twig doesn't seem to get smaller in terms of its diameter as it gets closer to the tip. Whereas on the other hand, slash pine, it does taper. So that's one difference that you can tell. Two is, of course, the needles. It's in the name. Longleaf pine tends to have longer needles. And each bundle of needles is called a fascicle. And usually with longleaf pine, there's about 2 or 3 needles. But the thing is, they are longer. They're up to, as a maximum, they can reach up to 18 inches long. So that's a 1.5 feet. So it's quite long. But on the other hand, slash pine, it may only reach a maximum of 12 feet. So you figure a foot. Alright, so then, let's see. Let's see if I can find an example. Well, another thing to note is, of course, the cone, which there are several that have fallen over. You see, with longleaf pine, the cones are even longer in length. They may reach up to as much as a foot. It seems like these have fallen fairly recently, it looks like. Whereas slash pine, the cones are, of course, much smaller. They may only reach 9, maybe 10 inches, if that. So that's another thing to note. But I want to show you guys, actually. You can see right here, there's growth of new cones. Isn't that cool? That is so neat to look at. Now, what is fascinating about the longleaf pine is in its initial growth, it usually starts out as a sapling that looks a lot like a particular grass. And then usually there's a fire period, and then it starts to sprout after that. Sometimes all it needs is exposure to fire, and then essentially the tree will continue its growth. Yeah. So for another longleaf pine, it's very sparse in terms of where you will find it. Oftentimes, you'll only see them on Sandhill habitat, or you can see it in scrub too, but it's usually a little more restricted to Central Florida on the ridges, areas that have a little more elevation, whereas slash pine is a lot more common in South Florida, and they're not really too particular about where they grow. There's quite a few that's over here, and it's actually a favorite nesting tree, especially for bald eagles, which I did see a nest way back there earlier. I did take a picture of it, so that will be up soon. So, you know, with the needles, the type of bark that's very dry, it's a very ideal conifer for nesting material. And typically bald eagles, they will nest here from October going into May. So you could say right now is not a good time to get close to bald eagle nests, because they will, if they feel threatened, they will fly away and will not return to their young. So just something to keep note. But yeah, the only other area that I have seen longleaf pine was at the Bach Tower Gardens, which actually is not too far away from here. I would probably say 45 minutes, if that. But quite neat to just have a glimpse. And for another, I forgot to mention, a rare type of woodpecker that is known as the Red-Cockaded. They actually like longleaf pines too. They're one of the few woodpeckers that actually like to get into the heartwood of even live trees sometimes. But they've become exceedingly rare because they rely on scrub. No different than the Florida scrub jay. So hopefully while I'm still out here, we'll be able to see a scrub jay. That would be wonderful. So you will see Florida scrub jays out here as well. They're an endemic bird that is only found in Florida. And they are also a very highly protected species down here. So fingers crossed. I really hope I can see one. That would be a pleasure. So, all right, you guys, take care. Enjoy your Wednesday. Journey on a Journey is onwards. Take care, folks. See ya.